love that. Okay.
Yes, let me.
Will Chris go to machine learning versus?
Awesome. If you guys could also mute yourselves, we can get started. And while we wait another minute, how about you guys share in the chat, where are you guys joining from?
I'm gonna have to order some weed.
Awesome. Let's get started. So thank you so much for joining us for How to Unlock Money for Your Startup with TaxTaker. My name is Patricia Diaz. I am the Director of Partner and Founder Success here at Digital Undivided. And Digital Undivided is the leading nonprofit leveraging our data, programs, and advocacy to catalyze economic growth for Latina and Black women entrepreneurs and innovators. We are proud to support women of color entrepreneurs through our research, programs, and advocacy efforts, and our initiatives under each pillar reinforce our goal of creating a greater world where all women of color own their work and their worth. Today's session is how to unlock money for your startup with TaxTaker. This session will discuss 2 tax credits startups and small businesses need to know: R&D tax credit and the employee retention tax credit. Your moderators for this session will be Ari and Austin from TaxTaker. So Ari is the CEO and co-founder of TaxTaker, a female-founded tax and technology savings company focused on helping put money back into growing companies' pockets. Over the course of her career, she has helped hundreds of companies save tens of millions of dollars on taxes through R&D tax credits and other specialty government programs. Austin is the head of partnerships for TaxTaker. Since working with TaxTaker, he has also helped hundreds of companies save millions with tax credits. He has worked for several startups in the various roles from sales, marketing, business development, and partnerships. Austin's favorite part about working in the niche world of tax credits is getting the opportunity to talk to amazing founders like yourself and operators every day who are helping amazing companies and on a mission to change the world. So with that, I will pass it off to them to get this session started.
Amazing. Thank you, Patricia. I really
Thank you
appreciate
so
it.
much. And thanks everyone for your time this afternoon/evening. Really, really neat to see people tuning in from all over the country. And it's such a privilege to get to spend time with this group. Being a female founder, I just have a particular passion for helping women and underrepresented founders. Here to fight the good fight, and I'm so looking forward to getting to know this group. Like Austin's bio said, we're just so inspired by the innovators and builders in this country, and we hope that we can provide some valuable information that you can take with you, because at the end of the day, building a business is hard. And statistically, for us as women, it's even harder, and especially underrepresented groups. So big commendaments to you for getting out there and being an entrepreneur. We're so excited to be able to have some time with you this evening.
Absolutely. Second everything Ari said. Thank you to Digital Undivided for having us. And we love partnering with organizations like Digital Undivided who support underrepresented founders. So definitely super excited to be here. So today we're going to focus, we're going to talk about 2 different ways you can unlock free money for your company. The R&D tax credit and the employee retention credit. Maybe you've heard of these mentioned before by your CPA or your CFO. We know you have a million other things, exciting things to be thinking about related to building your company. But the problem with putting tax and accounting strategies to the sideline is that you could be missing out on some valuable dollars to help you fuel those innovative passions you're working on throughout the year. So I'm going to run through some slides. Here's a quick agenda of what we're going to cover. We're going to give you a basic understanding of how each one works. And then we'll leave plenty of time for Q&A at the end. So as we go along, feel free to pop any questions that come through in the chat, or you can ask them at the end. So let's go ahead and dive in. So, not sure if you know this, but the IRS allocates billions of dollars every year to companies that are investing time and resources into innovation. And yes, that is a billion with a B. So the R&D tax credit, or the research and development tax credit, is a government incentive program for businesses of all shapes and sizes, and it's become a permanent fixture of the US tax code. So it's gained a lot of popularity in the last several years because now businesses and their accountants can plan around this incentive. So in a nutshell, it's the government's way of rewarding companies that invest in building cool stuff. So, and one really neat thing about it is that it's completely unique to your business and your internal spend. And companies can qualify even if they're pre-revenue or operating in losses. And we'll touch more on that a little bit later. So the R&D credit is available to any company that's designing, developing, or improving upon products and technologies. And historically, over $18 billion have actually been claimed from companies of all sizes. Now, smart companies like the Apples and the Amazons have been leveraging this incentive for years and creating a competitive advantage through it. But the cool thing is that it's not just for these big businesses, it's for everyone. And it's become such a large incentive that the IRS actually expects to distribute more than $150 billion over the next 6 years. But a lot of companies, especially ones that might be in the earlier stage, are unaware that this might apply to them. So tons of money is left on the table every year. So how do you turn expenses into savings? So depending on your incorporation date, your gross receipts, you can claim the R&D credit as either a payroll tax offset or a federal income tax offset. So the federal income tax offset is a dollar for dollar offset, exactly what it sounds like, a dollar for dollar offset against any federal income tax liabilities. And it can carry forward for up to 20 years. So if you get the credits, but you might not be profitable yet or generating income, those credits can carry forward for up to 20 years. It's not, if you don't use it, you lose it scenario. And this is available to all entities, all entity types. So if you're an S Corp or a C Corp or LLC, in a lot of times, depending on where you're incorporated or where your employees might be, you are eligible for state level credits as well. The payroll tax offset, on the other hand, goes against the employer FICA tax responsibility. So that 6.2% FICA tax that every employer has to pay, every employer in the US has to pay. And this is for the younger, earlier stage companies, which is defined as a company that is typically less than 5 years old or has less than 5 years of gross receipts and has less than 5 million in gross receipts. So what kind of companies qualify? And the short answer is really any company that's developing or improving upon products or technologies. But you might be asking, okay, well, what exactly does that look like? So these four are the most common types of companies that qualify. So you have your technology companies that maybe develop some sort of software or hardware. Then you have true product development and manufacturing. And then perhaps life sciences. And then, I think that's what we think about most when we think about research and development, kind of those folks in white lab coats. But it goes beyond that, which is great. And then, of course, your engineering companies. And then there's all different types of sub-industries that qualify that are often overlooked. So we're talking CPG, winery, breweries, textile and apparel, AI, blockchain, ag tech, government contractors, printing, cosmetics, and more. So as you can see, it's not just for those companies who employ folks in white lab coats. So pre-qualifying your company. So you might be saying, well, I think I develop new products or technologies, but how do I know if I meet the program requirements? So the IRS has something called the 4-part test. And here they basically want to just make sure that your company is going through a quasi-scientific method. So can you say yes to kind of the following basic questions? Are you developing a new or improved product or technology? Are your activities based in the hard sciences or the computer sciences? Is there some sort of uncertainty or risk regarding the outcome of your project? Can you demonstrate some sort of iterative process of experimentation to resolve that uncertainty? So failure is actually a great sign that there's true R&D going on. The IRS actually loves to see failure. And even if companies, even if you get to the point where something is commercially available and you're selling it, you're probably still making improvements to it and continuing to invest money in product development. So what's really cool about the R&D credit is that it's not just a one-time thing. This is something that you absolutely should be looking at every year, for the life of your business, such as that you're continuing to improve upon your product. So what expenses qualify? So this is going to come down to 4 buckets. First and foremost, we say that the R&D credit is primarily wage driven. So it's primarily going to be made up of W-2 payroll. This is going to be the biggest driver of the R&D credit. This is going to hold the most weight. So W-2 payroll for technical folks like a CTO or other developers, engineers, or designers, folks that are working directly on product development. And then something that gets missed sometimes is that actually we can take a tier up and a tier down approach. So anyone that might be on the C-suite team who is overseeing product development, maybe the CEO is still heavily involved in that process. We can include a portion of their salary as well. And then anyone who might be supporting R&D or product development, a project manager, a data analyst, someone who's participating in QA testing, that's informing product development. So we can take a portion of their salaries as well. The second biggest bucket is going to be 1099 contractors. So contractors that are also, helping with product development. Their costs, their expenses are included in the calculation as well. It's important to note that these folks do have to be based in the US when they're performing this work. We know talent is global, but given that this is a US-based incentive program, we can only include folks who are actually here in the US performing the work. And then for companies who might be building some sort of physical product, third bucket here is going to be supply expenses as it relates to your building any prototypes. So any materials that were consumed, building those prototypes before the product is commercially available. And then lastly, a big one for SaaS companies or software companies is cloud costs as it relates to your testing and staging environment. So think Google Cloud, Heroku, AWS, those types of expenses. So I won't spend a whole lot of time on this slide, but here's just a quick rundown of what might not be considered R&D. So this is, any surveys or polls you're taking, or things like funded research, or like I said, research, conducted outside the US. Any routine maintenance or quick bug fixes on software, anything that's just, making a quick aesthetic improvement, something like that, is not going to qualify as true R&D. You might be saying, and I touched on this earlier, a lot of companies say, okay, this probably doesn't apply to me because I'm not profitable. I'm in heavy losses. But the cool thing is that companies that are less than 5 years old and have less than 5 billion in gross receipts, as I mentioned earlier, is the payroll offset. This is a super, super attractive option to the folks that might be pre-revenue. So no matter what employer you are in the country, you do have to pay that 6.2% FICA tax on each of your employees. So to kind of give you an example, let's just say we have a cyber tech company that's founded in 2019, annual gross receipts of 600K, and with 6 full-time employees. Let's say that same company has 500,000 in W-2 payroll for 2022, 80,000 in US contractors, and 8,000 in cloud costs. So they'll owe about 34,000 in payroll taxes, and they very well could be eligible for over a $56,000 credit, which would then wipe out those payroll taxes altogether. And then any unused credits would then carry forward until they're all used up. So as you can see, yeah, super, super cool option for those folks that might be pre-revenue. Documentation is definitely an important part of the whole process. You need to retain contemporaneous documentation of what you're working on. And for the R&D credit, they should be holding on to documentation related to things you're working on. So this could be, product specs, technical reports, diagrams. For a software company, it could be Jira logs and things like that. Anything with a timestamp is going to be really, really helpful as well, as far as documentation goes. So this is just a quick overview of how our process works. We start off every engagement just by talking to your company on a brief 10 to 15 minute phone call, just to make sure it makes sense for you to go through the whole process. If it does, and you want to move forward, then you're gonna upload your financial information, and that's going to be, a breakout of those W-2s, those 1099s, cloud costs or supply expenses, and perhaps some prior year tax returns as well, so we can pull a couple of numbers from that. And then we want to just talk to you about your projects in a little more detail, so we can put the why behind the numbers, essentially. And we prepare the tax forms, and this is something that you want to include on a timely filed tax return. This is something you do want to include with your tax return. And then the taxes are filed. And then for the payroll tax offset, typically you can start to see the benefit the quarter after you file your tax return. For federal income, it's immediate. Here are kind of just a rundown of the deliverables that we deliver to you guys as part of the R&D tax credit, and any R&D provider should also would also kind of be these similar things. So 2 tax forms and a report as well that just outlines why you meet the qualifications for the R&D credit program and what expenses were included and all that good stuff. So now I'm going to hand it over to Ari, who is going to talk about the employee retention credit.
Thanks so much, Austin. And just to also quickly touch base on the last side around timeline, the reason why we're front loading a phone call at the beginning of our process now is because we can quickly determine if you qualify and really when it makes the most sense for your business. That's completely complimentary. Any tax professional you're speaking with about assessing your tax credit opportunity should not be charging you up front for that conversation. Most of the time when we're talking with our prospective clients, it's usually not so much a matter of if they qualify, but when it's going to make the most sense. Because we are talking a year behind in tax year terms, we're kind of always talking about what we did last year. Sometimes, you might be doing things this year or might have more spend, and it's going to put you in a position where, it's better to take advantage of 2023 maybe versus 2022. So just wanted to kind of note that. And then even though it kind of looks like there's, a good amount of steps here, our average client commitment the first year they work with us, which is the deepest dive of information we have to gather, because we do have to ask for some back year information, they're still spending about an hour or 2 on average collectively. So the ROI can be phenomenal, right? 10 to 15 minutes, and then in total an hour or 2 if you do go through the whole process. And our average client's getting $50,000 the first year they work with us. So we try to make it as painless as possible. And we think we have some friendly people here, so we hope it's enjoyable along the way as well. It's free money, and what's better than free money? Free money from the government, right? Especially during these wild times. So, as a segue to more free money from the government, COVID-19, was your business affected? Probably. Crazy past 3 years. I just got back from South by Southwest, and I was like, I cannot believe it's been 3 years since the world shut down. And we're still talking about this. So, and it's hard. So the government came out with a new program, in addition to PPP, disaster loans, EIDL loans. It's called the Employee Retention Credit. You might start to see this, or if you haven't already, there's some kind of spammy information out there, and we're just here to set the record straight. So this is an amazing program for companies that does have a shorter time frame to take advantage of it versus the R&D. The R&D should be for the life of your business. It's a permanent fixture of the tax code. This has a specific time frame. So you really need to take a look to see if this is going to be something that's your business is eligible for before next year. It's actually gonna sunset in 2024. So now's the time to take a look. If you qualify, you can get up to $26,000 per employee, $7,000 per quarter. So what is the Employee Retention Credit? It's a fully refundable payroll tax credit. So this was put into place in addition to the other relief programs, to reward businesses who were able to retain employees on payroll, W-2 payroll, during the months/years that we were affected by the COVID pandemic. So this is for businesses that had W-2 employees in 2020 and or 2021. So who qualifies? There's really 3 provisions that would enable a business to qualify for the program, all of which gets you to the same type of calculation depending on which quarters that you qualify for. But first, are you a business that had to partially or fully be suspended during COVID-19, and for what time frame? This is definitely the most subjective provision, and it definitely has a lot more scrutiny from the IRS. So you have to be able to demonstrate a good amount of documentation around when your businesses were shut down, for what time frame, and what were the outcomes based upon that. If you were deemed an essential business during 2020 or 2021, you likely would not meet this qualification. But we have seen several clients that were heavily disrupted by supply chains. Their vendors had to have a significant reduction in the hours of their workforce. They had not only just regional shutdowns, but local shutdowns that were really forced them to not be able to operate. Those are going to be better examples of meeting that provision. The second provision, this is the most popular provision. It is the most black and white provision of the program. So this applies to companies that experienced a revenue reduction. If you were able to experience or demonstrate a revenue reduction in 2020 of 50% compared to the same quarter in 2019, you qualify for that time in 2020. Then they eased up the rules because they said, businesses aren't bouncing back as quickly as we thought. So if you had revenue in 2021 and you were able to demonstrate a 20% reduction as compared to 2019, then that quarter qualifies. And there's a couple little intricacies, and you can, if you qualify in some quarters, sometimes you can qualify for others. So we can go more into detail on that if we were to make an assessment on your business. If you didn't have revenue in 2019, we would be comparing 2020 and 2021. But one of the provisions that is most overlooked is for newer businesses. So this is the startup provision. It's called the Recovery Startup Business Provision. And if you started a business, you were brave enough to start a business, get rocking and rolling after February 15th, 2020, and you had employees in 2021, you automatically qualify for 2 quarters in 2021 up to $100,000 if you made less than $1 million. So this is one that can be a phenomenal provision for newer businesses. But if you were to get in touch with us afterwards, we would be able to quickly run through all 3 provisions with you. The quarterly revenue decline tends to throw people off. So we can do that assessment for you if you give us quick access to financials, and that's as easy as even hopping on a screen share and doing that with you in real time. So 3 provisions: government shutdown with a caveat that there needs to be hefty documentation really demonstrating a really burden to the business. 2, revenue decline of either 50% compared to 2019 or 20% in 2021 compared to 2019, and the startup provision. So how is the credit calculated? So the max that you can get for an employee in 2020 is $5,000 for the year. In 2021, it got a bit more generous. So you can get up to $7,000 per person per quarter. Under the first 2 provisions, you can only get 3 quarters in 2021. If you're in the startup provision, you can get 2 quarters in 2021. So again, we would be able to lay that all out for you in any type of estimate. And we are looking at W-2 wages only. We know that 1099s, they add up as well, but this is just reserved for W-2 payroll wages because it's a refund on the payroll taxes that you put in. And then we can also take a look at your employer provided healthcare costs. Oh, I just went into, I jumped ahead on RSP. So just really quickly, again, if you made less than $1 million in the last few years, you started a business in February 15th, 2020, you're going to get up to 100 grand. Really, really handsome. And something to note too, is that you can also have already gotten PPP and also get the ERC. We just have to factor that into the calculation. So the documentation required to perform a full analysis is raw payroll data. What that means is we need to get per pay period employee detail, but basically by check, because we have to make sure we're seeing which check fell into which quarter. We need to confirm your gross receipts from relevant quarters. And then we're going to need to look at your 941s that you have already filed. If you are working with a PEO, a professional employer organization, through your payroll, such as TriNet or JustWorks or the like, they have some additional steps to actually processing your claim because they file as one, under one entity for healthcare kind of perks. So that would be kind of a separate conversation. We would need to have another conversation because they have a couple of extra steps. But if you're working with most payroll providers, you've filed a 941 on a quarterly basis. So it would be an easy pull. So example case, you had 9 employees in 2021. You pay each employee $10,000 of qualified wages during that quarter. Because you can get up to $7,000 per employee, your ERC credit would be $63,000. It is so direct, and it's a check back from the government. The R&D credit is amazing. It offsets your taxes. It reduces your payroll tax liabilities in real time. But the ERC is a physical check in the mail. And yes, physical. They snail mail these things because they make it really easy for us as taxpayers to pay them, but they send checks back in the mail, which takes a little bit of time. So because of that, Austin, you can go to the next one. Because of that, we're going to go into Q&A. So a couple of last thoughts on ERC. Urgency, right? The program's going away next year. So it's really important that you get your claim in if you think that you qualify. Typical turnaround times, it's estimated that once we help you actually put your ERC claim together, that the IRS will take about 6 months to process your claim. We've had some clients get them in 60 days. We've had some clients get them past 10 months. It becomes a little bit of a black box with the IRS, which probably is not very surprising, but it is there. We've processed millions of dollars of these. It's real money. There's nothing more exciting to get that mailbox money. You earned it. You weathered the storm, and it can provide some nice relief. And you can do whatever you want with the check too. There's no contingency that if you pay it with your taxes, anything. It's your money. And with that said, let's jump into Q&A.
Amazing. I think I see one question. I'm looking up at my other screen here. I see one great question from Annalisa. She asks, are founders able to go back to these years and amend their taxes if they already filed, if they qualify for these credits?
Yeah, so I think she is asking in relation to the R&D credit. So the IRS does allow you to go back 3 years and amend your federal taxes for these R&D credits. There is a catch that they can only be utilized on back years for income taxes. So if you didn't have income taxes in prior years, you could still generate a credit. It would just be carried forward for future use. And these credits do carry forward for 20 years. So Austin had kind of mentioned, you know, if you don't use them, you don't lose them. So they can be a really nice asset on your balance sheet as you grow the business. And then for ERC, we're just looking at 2020 and 2021 eligibility. Great question. And also often many states offer complimentary R&D credits in addition to the federal credit. So about 38 states nationwide offer a supplemental R&D state credit opportunity.
Yes. And I see Patricia posted a link if you want to get in touch with us. Yeah, she posted a link to a landing page. Just go ahead and fill out that information and yeah, we can set up a time to chat and see if these incentives make sense for your business. Any other questions? Feel free to drop them in the chat or unmute yourself and ask away.
I'm seeing, will these slides be available? Yes, we will absolutely send the slides out. And then I think just another reminder, you have to be timely filed as a business, depending on if you're an LLC or an S corporation. You know, March 15th, tomorrow is the first deadline, but you also, if you go on extension, which is perfectly acceptable, you have until September 15th to file your taxes. If you're a C corporation, your filing deadlines are April 15th. Or October 15th if you're on extension. So just important to have these conversations kind of now while it's top of mind, because these do have to get included in your general tax filing.
Yes, I see Talia is asking, do you all do complete tax preparation services?
We do not. We do not. So we are hyper specialized in just the tax credits and incentives. However, we have a really robust accounting and CFO network of tax preparers as well. So happy to make recommendations there.
Absolutely.
Can you guys touch on for the initial call, what to expect, what to bring to the call initially as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So for an R&D call, you know, generally we're getting to just, you know, ask a few questions about your business, what you're working on. But it's also helpful if you can come prepared with some of your financials, whether those be exact or, you know, close to a ballpark figure, because that's going to really allow us on our time together to get to a real-time estimate of what benefits are available. So that's going to include what you spent on W-2 payroll last year, potentially some of those contractors and maybe supply expenses. And then we'll be able to turn around, you know, a figure really in just a few minutes. For ERC, kind of same thing. We're just looking, you know, to talk about your either your revenue reduction or your shutdown impact, or if you were a business with less than $1 million and incorporate after February 2020. So make it super, super easy. That's a great question. And also in our calendar invites, Austin's really good about this. He put it in every calendar invite now of what to expect, and there's a reminder of what to bring.
Lena is asking, is it better for a PLLC, a service organization, to file S Corp designation?
I would definitely need to learn more about your business to be able to answer that question. But for purposes of taking these tax credits, you don't have to, it's across the board. Not one entity is better than another.
Yeah. We can work with any entity type too. That's
Yes.
entity agnostic.
Yes.
Any other questions? These are all really good questions.
I know I sometimes save my best questions for after webinars as well. So I think we'll be able to send everything out, shortly after the presentation. And we are, a landing page and an email away.
We do have one more question in here from Christina. Do tech products, parentheses, novel digital products, which use existing software qualify? That's a great question.
Yeah, that absolutely is. So the short answer is probably not. One of the things that the IRS wants to make sure of is that no two companies claim the same dollar. So if you're using off-the-shelf tools, no code solutions, you won't be eligible for the credit. It's really going to be the folks that developed those tools and softwares will be the claimants of it. If you're custom configuring tools, that can be highly sophisticated as well, but we would need to dive in a bit further to see if you're doing actually custom software development. So unlikely, no, even though it takes some skill and a lot of time to put certain systems together. But if you're performing custom software engineering, then you should qualify.
Awesome. Any last minute
Thanks, Christina.
questions?
Yeah, thanks, Christina. Yeah, and as you think about just budgeting, because a lot of times we have these conversations and it's like, oh, great, I was thinking about building this year or this other product or widget. So just be thinking about, going forward, if you've kind of got a new project that you're toying around with or about to make a capital investment into, a new product or business lines, that, these development efforts, you should be getting about 10% back on every dollar that you spend. So as you're thinking about budgeting and kind of long-term strategy, just know that, there's going to be some relief in future years.
Awesome. Well, I'd like to thank both Austin and Ari for taking the time to educate us on everything tax credit. I will be also sending an email as a follow-up with all the information, including that particular website, anything you kind of need to be able to reach out to them in case you have any questions. And with that, we can wrap up. So thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a great rest of your week. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.